The Fed says activity in the housing sector is weak. What do you see as behind that hesitation?
There are two parts to it. One is the rate structure is higher, so it's just slowed down the activity. So if people are going to sell a house to move up to a bigger house or something, the cost of debt's going to go up. So
Right.
that's slowing down that activity. The second is building, and there's housing volume shortages all over the country. You could have single family, small multi, 4 units, things like that, or even more bigger multifamily in major cities. But there's a universal housing shortage because for so many years, it's been hard to get housing permitted. And so the advice I give to anybody is you're probably not going to see the 10-year rates go down. Our teammates think the Fed funds rate gets to low of 3, but the 10-year rate stays between 4 and 4.5, which means the mortgage rate won't be a lot different than it is today. But if you increase supply, you'll keep prices flat and wages will grow through it. And you're starting to see prices have flattened out in many places. So you got to build supply and you got to get permitting done and you got to do that is probably the solution. Moving mortgage rates 50 basis points will not be a huge change. When you have a bunch of people with 3% mortgage rates, that's not going to be changed. And by the way, for the American economy, we do not want to have an economy that has to have that low rate structure again, because that means we're not growing, we're not successful, and we're probably offsetting a recession. So we shouldn't be cheering for 3% mortgage rates. It was an anomaly that happened, and now we got to get back to normal.
Well, you do hear the administration talk about rates coming down as a good thing.
Yeah.
You're just saying it's not a simple, quick fix.
Well, for the housing market, because there's 130 odd million households in America. Half of them don't have a mortgage. This whole lock-in question is not even a relevant question. They rent, and so you got to bring rental affordability is a question. Or they own outright, and that's a different question. They inherit a house, third generation or something like that. So it's a very complex thing. But simplistically, if mortgage rates come down, people can pay more. The reality is if prices come down, people have more affordability on that side. So I think it works itself through.
So let me ask you about Fannie and Freddie. Taxpayers took a stake during the financial crisis in these mortgage lenders. The Treasury Secretary said that they are expected to return to the public market in the next year with the government selling a portion of that stake. Does Bank of America have a role in that transaction? But for consumers, is that actually going to push up the cost of owning a home?
I don't talk about client relationships, but look, it won't if they keep the guarantee. And the administration knows that, and Secretary Bissett knows it. That guarantee helps keep that mortgage rate down, but also provides a 30-year mortgage. Because now, when you make a mortgage loan without a government guarantee, for a borrower who may be on the qualification levels there are more advantageous to borrow, you're making a decision for the next 30 years that the borrower is going to be okay, or a lot of years. So that guarantee is critical to the U.S. getting fixed rate mortgages and having a lot of mortgage availability. And then they've run the thing that's pretty responsible since the financial crisis. Down payments have stayed substantial. So the credit quality of current portfolios is pretty good. And they can't lose that because that was the reason, one of the reasons why we had the financial crisis was the low down payments and lots of mortgage loans with zero equity in them. And as soon as prices on houses came down, the whole thing exploded, and all America was affected. So I think they're very mindful of all that, and I think, they're critical to the U.S. housing system. They always have been. They're a great company. They're an iconic company for the U.S., frankly. Now they put them together and are running well.
So the president has announced that he wants all these sweeping changes to the Federal Reserve. Chair Powell is set to retire from the job in May. How much does that job matter to the consumer? How do you explain that?
Well, it's one of the interesting things. So the president's going to appoint a new chair of the Federal Reserve. He's got great candidates. He'll appoint somebody, and we'll help that candidate get the information, be successful, and so we'll see what he does. But that's his prerogative. He should do. In my mind, there's too much fascination with the Fed. We're a country that's driven by the private sector, by what people do, and in the businesses and the companies, small companies and large companies, medium-sized companies, and entrepreneurs and doctors and lawyers. All these people drive our economy. The idea that we are like hanging on the thread by the Fed moving rates 25 basis points, it seems to me we've gotten out of whack. And so we got to get, since the financial crisis, the Fed had a big role in stabilizing the economy. That's what they're supposed to do. That went away a number of years ago. It came back a little bit in COVID. They're a lender of last resort. They're there to stabilize markets and price. But other than that, you shouldn't know they exist, quite frankly.
So you don't worry about all this, hand-wringing of political interference with the Fed once that new position is.
The market is will punish people if we don't have an independent Fed, and everybody knows that.